Hey there, CPO here, and today I want to show you the Grit Performance tire deflator and gauge. This is a handy piece of kit for quickly deflating your tires by removing the valve stem core. Let me show you what's in the box here. Alright, so here you have your tire deflation tool with a gauge, and we'll check the accuracy of that gauge. I'll let you know how it's faring to my sort of reliable digital gauge. Also comes with some extra valve stem caps and a valve core tool and a full color user guide. So if you've never used it before, they give you easy step-by-step instructions on how to do that, including a blow-up of the different parts. But don't fret, I'll show you how to use it right now. Alright, so we're going to use my spare tire as a test tire because it's convenient and I don't have to get on my knees. I'm just going to use a tire gauge that I have right now to get a quick digital reading. 31.5 is what's showing in here. So we'll keep that in mind as we move forward. That's sort of a trusted gauge for me. Let me go over the different parts of this. So you have a internal threads that are designed to thread onto your valve stem. You've got this slide valve here. You've got the valve stem adapter and the valve core remover. So when you get it out of the package, it might be a little bit stiff, but just know that everything sort of slides. This slides independently of this, and that's what makes this so cool. On the other end, you'll have a gauge, and then also this pressure release button. So I'll show you how all this works. But the first thing you want to do, make sure your valve stem is free of any dirt and crud. I always run valve caps to prevent that, but I know people lose them and then run without them. The good news is this kit actually comes with spare valve caps, so if you lose them, you can replace them quickly. Alright, so again, pulling this all the way loose. So this is going to thread onto the valve stem till it's snug. Then this is going to push down and then rotate it until it seats, and you'll feel it seat inside the valve core. And then you're basically now unscrewing, if you keep turning counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, until the valve core is completely removed. And under air pressure, it will push this plunger out. Now sometimes the plunger will push out with the valve stem still installed. It's just because you released a little bit of air in there, maybe by touching that center of the valve core. But with that fully out, you should be reading the pressure for the tire. So we were, what did we read, 31.5, and this is reading 32.5 probably. So not bad, 1 psi difference, that's fairly trustworthy. So now that that is done, I can start releasing the pressure. So in order to do that, I'm going to slide that valve back. And the reason pressure is releasing is because with this tool in here, I have basically removed the valve core, and it is pulled up inside here. And then this releases a hole to let the air come out. So let's take it down to 15 psi, and we'll see how long that takes. So I'm just going to do a pressure check here. It's at 31.5, and let's see how long it takes to actually do this. Alright, so the very first time I did this, I actually posted video timing the deflation of this tire from 32 to 15, and somebody commented, I'm at 32 psi right now, somebody commented that they didn't feel like my valve core had been completely removed because it took like 4.5 minutes, and that seemed long, but you know, it is what it is. and I was certain I got that valve core removed. And one of the things I do to check that is, number one, is I push down as I rotate out, and I can feel it sort of come out of the threads. But in general, if you're not comfortable with that, if you rotate it like 10 times, you should be good. But now I know it's completely out of the threads. But what I'm finding from playing around with this is that sometimes the valve core may be unthreaded completely, but for whatever reason is still trapped down below. And what you want it to do is come up out of the way so it doesn't hinder airflow. So this is basically with the valve core completely removed. Again, I'm pushing in, turning. I know that it's out all the way. I can feel it out, but the airflow still seems a little bit restricted. But watch this. I'm going to unscrew this. Just a couple of threads. Listen to the difference. You hear the difference in the airflow? I'm going to screw it back in a couple tight. I'm going to throw this valve core all the way back in. Okay, so it's all back to the way it is. I'm going to release the valve core. Okay, it's completely out. Hear the airflow? Now watch. So my point is, you need to make sure that that valve core gets pushed completely out of the way. And for some reason, maybe it's just my tire or my valve stem, but for some reason that core isn't coming all the way out of the way just with air pressure alone. But backing this deflator off a couple of turns, makes a huge difference. All right, starting from scratch. Okay, valve stem's completely out. I'm at a little over 32, looks like about 33 actually. I'm going to set this right up here. I'm going to do that little trick where I back this thing off a couple of threads. Get my timer going, set to 0 there. I'm going to put this right there and go. After 1 minute, it's down to 15 psi. Holy smokes. I didn't stop this, but holy cow. So that's the difference, is you've got to just back those threads off just a little bit. It went down from 4.5 minutes to 1 minute on a deflate. That's pretty impressive. So now, let me show you how to get this back together, because if you just unscrew this now, your valve core is not actually installed. So your valve core is gonna spring out, and you're gonna probably lose it in the mud, and you won't have a way to to hold the air in your tire. So it's very important that you follow this step. Push this in and then turn it clockwise, righty-tighty. Sorry, I've been teaching my son things. So lefty-loosey and righty-tighty are the words of the week for me. But holding this down, turn it clockwise until you feel it gets snug. Okay? Then you've locked the valve core back in, and now you can uninstall the gauge. And then just as you slowly pull it away, you shouldn't hear any air sounds. If you hear air sounds when you're unscrewing this, screw it back in because your valve core still isn't in right. But that's it. Let's check with my AccuGauge. Yeah, 15. So that's what I shot for. That's what I was reading here. I think it was like close to 15 and a half, but right at the 15. And that's what we got off this. So that's good. Don't forget to put your valve cover, your cap back on before you go wheeling. And of course, because it has a gauge on it, it's not just useful for airing down, it's useful for airing up as well. So as I re-air my tire, I can use that gauge for a pressure check. So to do that, what you would do is just screw it on and then push on the middle of this, which will pressurize your gauge. Not quite as fast as a regular gauge because you've got to screw it on, but it does serve the purpose of checking. So I'll finish airing this up. I think I'm going to go to about 28, which is my standard road pressure. Although if you want my honest opinion, it's still faster to have a dedicated gauge for airing up. Just because you don't have to screw on the gauge and then unscrew it each time. But for deflation purposes, it works awesome. Alright, I'm at 28 on that gauge. I'll see what this one reads. So screw it on, clear the gauge, and pressurize. Yep, 28. Alright, also what comes in your kit, like I mentioned, are these 4 extra valve caps. But more importantly is this guy here. You may never need to use this, but it's handy to have if you do. So this is a valve repair tool or 4-way tool, you often hear it called. This has a couple of functions to help repair if you have a problem with your valve stem. So this will help you. It has a core removal tool, which is this, which actually is exactly what's inside of your deflator. So that's actually what you press against that unscrews the valve core. So it would look like this, and same thing, get it down to where it's pressed in, and then you rotate it to loosen it, and you can hear airs releasing. If I keep doing that, the entire valve core will come out, and I risk shooting it across the room, so I'm hoping not to do that. So I'm going to screw it back in because I have in my hand another one that we can play with. So this is what that looks like, the valve core. It's basically a little spring-loaded thing here that when you press on this, it opens up the hole to let air in and out. So that's how most deflators work, is they press in this to release that. With this particular deflator, it removes and then pulls out the entire thing, and then you put it back in when you're done. But anyway, so that's one function of this. The other function is if you have a thread problem. So you can see that the valve core is threaded up here at the top, and that's going to thread into the valve stem. If you end up with cross-threaded or some reason need to repair those threads, that's what you'll use this for. You'll put it in there and screw it through to repair that. Alternatively, you've got this guy here, which can be used probably to fix threads on the outside of this, but more importantly, what it allows you to do is screw this whole thing on top. If your valve stem gets displaced, you can use this to pull it back through. So that's what that's for. Anyway, like I said, hopefully you never need to use it, but it's nice that they throw it in the kit just in case. But for the most part, all you'll ever need to worry about is the business end of this guy here. And again, just really quick redo. Basically all you're doing, threading this on, pushing this down to remove the valve core. It will pressurize with air. The gauge is now pressurized and reading air, and then to release air, just pull that out. It's that simple, and then just make sure that whenever you are done that you screw in that valve core all the way. Make sure it's snug, and you shouldn't have any pressure holding this up. So if you push it in and it stays in, you're good to go. And then unscrew that, and then move on to your next tire. So anyway, that's that. The tire deflator from Grit Performance. Worthy to have in your kit. Makes it a lot easier. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.